I don't know what it was about it. I started that video and evidently it crashed the live stream. So I'll link the video. You can watch it. I'm not going to play it again because I think that I don't know. I'm going to have to check and find out why a video will crash the stream. It doesn't make any sense because I have really strong internet service provider now. So what I want to move, that's talking about income inequality between the minorities, black and white, based, one of the key factors is based on how many years a family has owned their home. And as we already know, the predatory loans targeted minorities. So it's a policy, it's made that even worse for minorities. It's ruined more black families proportionately than white families. But like I've said at the end of the show, which evidently didn't get streamed either, and that is, again, it's all of the people against the banks and the wealthy 1%. That is what's happening because their fraud policies are crushing everyone. So those at the bottom are going to get crushed too. It's truly something we need to stop. Here's an article I want to talk about just briefly. This is written by Gretchen Morgensen. She's fabulous. She looks into these fraud situations in depth. Wrote the book, Reckless Endangerment, really focusing the blame on Fannie and Freddie in the mid-90s, and Jim Johnson, who led Fannie Mae at that time as being a key ringleader in starting the stopping of the underwriting rules, starting to deregulate underwriting, just ignore that, and make loans. They didn't care what kind they were because, like Keith just said, when that little video stretch we saw today, the more loans, the more money they made. So who cares about cheating the investors when they buy these toxic loans and it blows up? The banks didn't care because they made all the money. They're the inside, in the center, cheating the borrowers, cheating the investors, cheating the government, well, buying them off, cheating the IRS, just cheating everywhere you look. That is the problem. And so now she's identified specifically that the New York Federal Reserve, branch of the Federal Reserve in New York, actually is siding with B of A for some modest penalty like $43 million and stopping the B of A lawsuit that they're being sued by AIG. AIG was suing B of A for $7 billion in fraud in the mortgage-backed securities. So the Fed steps in, talks to B of A, secretly gets a payment, $43 million, and then they're going to just vote against, or be a witness against the AIG fraud case. Makes you really wonder, doesn't it? It truly is indicative of the insider gaming that the government is doing with the banks. They are in cahoots. It is a cartel. This is something that we must recognize. I think we should, the people, and I don't know, why can't we change the rules so that they cannot have a Goldman Sachs Treasury Secretary? Can somebody research that? That strikes me as one of the hearts of the real problem. All these agency heads come from the banks. And the thousands and thousands, I couldn't even remember the numbers that Keith talked about, of all of the lobbyists and all the money, besides the ballooning of government employees. It's really something else. We need to know it. We need to be aware of it. We don't need to get disheartened, because you got to remember we still have fraud and forgery on our documents. And I'm going to do a second workshop just after this show today on how to find the mortgage-backed security in the SEC if it's on your documents. And I've got an updated worksheet for that I'm going to be uploading and using. So be sure to watch for that. Here's Wall Street wins again, fraud totally unchecked. He says this very well.
You remember they had the big $25 billion deal where the bank said, okay, yeah, we did those robo-foreclosures, which are clearly and wildly illegal, but that's all right, let's do a settlement. I mean, a banker's going to go to jail because they did something illegal? I don't think so. Welcome to America, right? So all right, $25 billion. This is a historic settlement. It's a historic settlement. Classic Obama claim. Everything he does is historic. So everything should be fine. Now, of course, we found out later of that $25 billion, about 20% actually comes from the banks. Guess where the rest comes from? It's us paying ourselves. Maddening, right? Now, turns out there's a second problem with that settlement. They said, not only are we going to get the $25 billion, but we are setting up the toughest commission there is. The Residential Mortgage-Backed Securities Working Group. It's going to have people like the New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and he's been so tough on the banks. And by the way, he had been. At that point, I was a fan of Schneiderman, and he was going to get the banks, and then he was like, I don't know if I want to be part of this settlement. It doesn't seem right. They said, are you kidding me? We're going to put you as the head of the working group. Oh, that's okay. We got a strong commission. Okay, now you want to know what happened? That the settlement and the commission was supposed to be set up over a year ago. As David Dayen reports at Salon, there never was a residential mortgage-backed securities working group, never a so-called task force dedicated to ferreting out Wall Street fraud. They never put it into place. Into the wind. I mean, what an unbelievable lie. They didn't have any offices, any telephones, any workers. Anytime anybody else did anything in the government, which was not that frequent, this group would say, yeah, us too, totally agreed. Press release. Just one giant press release. What a scam. And you think Obama wants to hold the banks accountable? Obama's been tough on the banks? Schneiderman Task Force was merely, David explains, a politically motivated shell organization grafted onto that public relations strategy. So this was just one big PR trick. Again, David Dayen explains, there are no offices, no phones, and no staff dedicated to the non-task force. Now, Schneiderman did do one thing. He went after a group here right before the election. It was J.P. Morgan Chase over their Bear Stearns fraudulent misrepresentations back in 2008. Okay, so that got a lot of news. Guess when that was? 1 month before the election. Like, oh, we're doing something. Oh, yeah, totally. Progressives, liberals, Democrats, vote for us. Yes! And that wasn't even the task force. That was his own office in New York. And then the task force sends out a press release. Oh, wow, okay. Thank you for being such a tough-hitting task force. Now, this quote amuses me. It's from Robert Khuzami. He's the former head of enforcement, laugh along with me, at the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission. He said, quote, we hired a coordinator, but most of the investigative work being done here is not really being done by a staff that belongs to the task force. It's being done by individual investigative groups that make up the task force. Okay, so in case you didn't believe David Dayen, there's Robert Khuzami totally verifying it. Saying, we don't have a task force per se, but there's different groups like the New York Attorney General, etc., that are kind of part of the task force, and if they happen to do something, well, then the task force takes credit for it. That was the historic commission that was supposed to get tough on the banks and regulate them. Now do you understand what kind of a joke President Obama is? Fortunately, the joke's on us. Oh, change! Oh my God, all these bankers! Oh, they're so afraid of Obama because he's so tough on them. And then they all go behind the scenes and go, that was a good one. Task force! Task force! Ain't nobody got no task. Ain't nobody got time for a task force. Joke's on us, man, as usual. Bankers, shockingly enough, will not be held accountable at all because nobody's even bothering to investigate them.
We need to make that change. We need to, here's an idea. What if we push to have a citizens task force? I know about 25, 50, 100 people watching this live stream. We'll get on that task force. We'll kick some butt. Let's think outside the box. How do we actually make some changes? And of course, one of the major solutions, which I haven't talked about for a couple of weeks, is the public banking. creating credit for public profit and gain rather than for private banker pockets. That's a complete shift of the money game from private bankers to the public good. And that we can start locally. Let's focus on getting public banks set up in our cities and counties and states. And then we can use that to migrate into loans coming from our local banking system. The public bank cooperates with the local and regional private banks. It's not banking per se that's necessarily bad. It's these mega banks creating mega credit, fiat credit, for mega buy-off to where they're controlling the planet. So any idea, every idea on how we can get a grip back on this problem, please share it. Let's make this happen. Here's a senator in Florida, so let's support him. He's an Orlando senator, is seeking foreclosure reform, and I think we talked last week about the bill going through Florida Congress trying to speed up foreclosures, and I showed you the little clip from the head of the Bankers Association in Florida saying, "Oh, we just have to clear out this inventory," as if it's just like shoes. Let's just get these shoes sold, and so we can have new shoes, on the market. Not even recognizing that every foreclosure is some family's heartbreak and loss, and that family now can't buy. So who's going to buy these houses? China, money from all over the world is pouring into Florida to buy all the prime property. Did you say it was on the coasts? Those are the ones that had the toxic loans, so they're the ones that collapsed and went into foreclosure, and they're the ones that are now being sold for pennies on the debt dollar to foreigners and other folks for all cash. It's a slow-moving tsunami, but in the end, we're going to look back and go, my goodness, look at the destruction. So here he's got 4 bills to provide taxpayer-funded support for people who are on the verge of foreclosure, make it more difficult for the banks to sue homeowners for additional debt after the foreclosure. That's called recourse. In California, the state legislature had passed several years ago no recourse for purchase money loans. Purchase money being the money that you borrowed to purchase the house. If that goes into foreclosure and you lose the house, the lender cannot go after you for recourse. Here, but that's not that way in every state. Many states, the lenders can go after the homeowner for recourse for the additional amount that was lost in the foreclosure. So this is insult to injury. Many, most of these homes lost to foreclosure did so because the value market in the market collapsed, and the loans exploded, so they couldn't make the payments. The value went down. They couldn't refinance. They can't get out of the toxic loan. They can't keep making the payments, and so they end up losing it. So it's a combination. It's a 1-2 punch from the banks. Let's give them toxic, and then when they can't pay it, let's take the house. Oh yeah, and then let's go after them and get the difference out of their hide. And that's just outrageous. So we need to support folks. His name is Toulouse Olorunipa. I apologize if I didn't say that right. So those folks in Florida, let's support him. Let's back any elected official that is for the people. We must do that any way and everywhere we can. I'd like to show you this We the People stimulus package. This has evidently gotten over 10 million views on YouTube. You might have seen it before. I want to feed it into the live stream, and I want to talk about what he says to do after the fact. We need to start thinking really, how can our movement become national? How do we get 1 million people involved? What is it going to take?
What would have happened in 1789 or 1942 or 9/11 if a top government official stepped in front of the people and publicly proclaimed America was a nation of cowards? He would have been run out of the country on a rail, packaged in tar and feathered at least. But that's what happened in 2009. and you did nothing. Have you become a nation of cowards, America? In the greatest show of arrogance and disdain any Congress ever showed any citizenry, your dysfunctionally elite, self-interested, none-representing representatives passed the largest spending bill in history without reading it, and you did nothing. You want them to obey your constitutional mandate and secure your borders, and they ignore you. You ask them to enforce your immigration laws, and they ignore you. You say stop the madness of handing $300 billion of a bankrupted treasury to illegal alien welfare, rewarding them for making a mockery of your laws, and they ignore you. And now, in open defiance of the overwhelming will of the people, are preparing more amnesty programs. You say stop exporting my nation's vital industries to foreign shores, and they ignore you. You say no to using your money to bail out failed, corrupt, and greedy businesses, and they ignore you. You say implement the E-Verify system so American jobs go to American workers, and they ignore you. If your self-serving Congress were a business, they'd all be in jail now. The biggest traitors among you hold elective office. Only when they feel the almighty wrath of we the people, marching in the streets from California to New York, shouting we're mad as hell and we want our country back, will they get the message they work for you. Wake up, America. While you were playing with the toys of your consumer wealth, you lost much more than your bloated economy of living beyond your means. You lost your representative democracy. Your servants have become your masters. Taxation without representation is tyranny. But still you look to government to solve problems they created in the first place. You're sucking at the hind tit of a dead cow. Why isn't there a 3 million person We the People march on Washington? A nationwide taxpayers' revolt. Thousands of cars and trucks surrounding your nation's capital, bringing your failed government to a standstill. Democracy doesn't repress power. It unleashes it to we the people. Take it now. They dictated an economic salvation plan to you. Now it's time to stick it to them with a we the people stimulus package. Require all laws that apply to the rest of the country to equally apply to Congress. Start by first removing the elite privileges that place your non-representing representatives above you, not with you. Require all laws that apply to the rest of the country to equally apply to Congress. Repeal Congress's right to vote for their own raises. Balance the federal budget. Force your legislators to do what you now have to do. Live within your means. If you don't, you're committing national suicide. Make Congress pay into the Social Security system. They make laws for it. Now they might be interested in thinking twice before they allow 20 million illegal aliens to reap the benefits of a retirement program the legal citizens paid into all their lives. Long-term power corrupts. Limit Congress from serving more than 2 terms. That's all you give your president. Let them search for their own 401k plan, instead of the gross unfairness of awarding them their full salary for the rest of their lives after only serving 1 term. Stop paying for lawmakers' insurance premiums. After all, they're only part-time employees. They might pass some laws on the insurance companies if they had to find one themselves. Throw out of office every congressman and woman who didn't bother to read the biggest spending bill in history before voting for it. With the money you save from all of the above, put it into increased salary and benefits for the men and women of the armed forces. They never fail you. Start no war unless you intend to win it. Make English the official language of America. You talk of united we stand, but do nothing to make it happen. Give every legal immigrant a chance to succeed. Not 1 cent of taxpayer money for illegal aliens. We are a nation of laws and do not reward lawbreakers. Abolish the Electoral College and put the election of the president back in the hands of we the people. Bring back universal service. 2 years in the military or 2 years in community involvement. Ensure your future. Rekindle the spirit of America. Service, honor, and duty to country. Give your young people a chance to understand they are entitled to nothing they don't earn. Wake up, America. You've allowed yourselves to become little more than cowering spectators, watching the nation your grandparents built, the richest, most powerful, most self-sufficient republic in history, with the highest standard of living any nation ever achieved, now in the middle of the greatest unprecedented decline in modern history. The world's only superpower can't defend its borders, balance its budget, win its wars, manufacture its own products, or protect its own currency. Your total government debt obligation in the next several years is approaching the gross domestic product of the entire world. You've diminished the future of your children, grandchildren, and 10 more generations of Americans. On September 11th, 2001, 300 million Americans put aside what divided them and rallied around what united them. You proudly flew your flags, wore T-shirts that said, "These colors don't run." Then your leadership told you to do nothing. Let your professional army do the fighting. Perhaps you learned to do nothing too well. 233 years ago, the silent majority in Boston got fed up with taxation without representation and held a little tea party to prove the anger of we the people is on the march. It started the first American Revolution. Now it's time to start the second American Revolution. Take an envelope, put a tea bag inside, simple, seal it, and send it to your non-representing representatives in Congress. They'll get the idea. We're mad as hell and we want our country back. Look in your mirror. There's your leader. Phone your talk radio host. Call for a tax protest. Set your internet communities on fire with the idea. But if you decide to do nothing again, then buy a gun. You'll need it. My name is Thomas Paine. Don't give up hope, America. Your country needs a new greatest generation. Answer the call. Get into the fight. It's a good time to be a patriot. The Second American Revolution has just begun.
I had a couple of thoughts about this. Number one, I heard that Obama had contacted him. My cynical response to that is Obama would love this guy, because this guy and this diatribe focuses on Congress. Now, admittedly, Congress has people and representatives that are bought off. Some are, some aren't. We're trying to sort through that. But notice some of these other videos we talked about this morning and listened to, they've put the blame straight at the feet of administrations. It's the president that appoints the Treasury Secretary. It's the president that, I believe, that appoints the Federal Reserve Chairman. These are overriding. It's the president that sets executive orders. So didn't Obama just do executive orders like for immigration? My understanding, and I don't know enough detail to say so others, please, send me the proof. I'll live stream it. But the fact of the matter is, the executive orders are sidestepping Congress. And I know that the executives have been doing this. Obama's not the first one. They've all done executive orders. We need to sit back, listen to this again, and start really thinking and analyzing what he's saying. I believe many of the things are absolutely right. Absolutely. Take away the privileges of Congress. Take away all the benefits. Make them actually truly part-time employees, and don't give them health care and income for life for serving one term. That's insane. You're only going to get folks wanting to be elected for the benefits. So stop the benefits. Make them participate just like you and I. Make them like real people that want to represent the public going in there. There's other things like get lobbyists out of Congress. But, the lobby door is wide open at the president, and it's very difficult. We've already talked about how groups of Democrats, 25 Democrats, have written a letter begging Obama to do something about foreclosures, to just meet with them and just talk with them. This was a year ago, January 2012. I remember, it's linked on my website. And the fact is, Obama won't even talk to him. So if Congress can't get in to talk to the president, but you've got, his favorite labor union leaders and lobbyists from the banks and all that kind of stuff coming in and out the door over and over and over, we've got a real problem. So interestingly enough, this is a very good diatribe, but I don't believe it's really looking at the whole picture. And I'm very, very concerned that the focus is not necessarily on the right spots to really effect the change that this country needs. We need investigations like the SEC And like the foreclosure investigation and the fraud investigation, we need that funded. We need that done by people that do not try to just get a revolving door out of it. I don't know how to do this. So your suggestions and ideas are welcome. Don't just sit there and watch. Join us. Give us ideas. And in fact, it was occurring to me as I'm watching through this today that by Friday, this Friday, I would like to, on our Update Friday, I want to have it an Update Strategy Friday. Share your strategies. Get on live stream. Share your ideas out with everyone that's watching. Let's figure out something, no offense, but let's figure out something a little better than putting a tea bag in an envelope. I don't think that really cuts it. I think it's a cute idea, and I think that, you know, the people will get the tea bags, but they're just going to throw them away. You know that. It's just going to be a flash in the pan. It's not something that's going to really be lasting change. So I'm challenging us to actually take some of these ideas and add strategies to them. What can the people really do to stop having a revolving door at the heads of these agencies, to shift the emphasis and get people representation instead of getting paid off by the banks? Everything I've showed you today, just it's truth. It's true. These people are not lying to us. They're telling us the truth. It's out there for us to see and listen to. How do we share this truth with more? And then how do we get more people to join us in this battle? And then how can we really smartly, shrewdly effect change? Because we only have our individual lives and efforts and resources. We don't have big pockets. We can't create credit on our own to fund our efforts. So what can we do? That's a challenge to you. And let's get that out on a live stream on Friday. I'm going to sign off right now and get ready for workshop 2, the second workshop on analyzing our recorded documents, because I've gotten some new information that I want to share. It's going to be a fairly short workshop, but it's really crucial. It turns out that analyzing the recorded documents, I believe, is going to be the heart and soul of holding some of these banks' feet to the fire, banksters' feet to the fire with the fraud and corruption. This is CJ signing off today for Homeowners for Justice and Weekdays Live. We'll see you tomorrow.